Oh, it said a big go right on your screen right then, Christine. Does that mean we're on? Good morning, everybody. And I am here today. Yep, wave at him, Amanda. I'm here today with Amanda Cooper. We seldom get to see her. She's usually underneath some house somewhere or on a roof um, or
Definitely.
out in the back garage throwing stuff out. You know, it's crazy that all the and you can tell by the way she's dressed this morning that
I'm going to get on a roof
you're going to
later.
get on a
Yeah.
roof later. That's exactly right. You
Definitely.
guys, Amanda's been on here before, and of course, she has the most famous podcast that goes on a weekly basis. It's a live Zoom call, really, isn't it?
Oh, yes. I
When,
don't know that it's most popular,
well, you don't see anybody getting on mine.
but
I mean, I
lies.
don't have one, but all right. Tell me about when is it? What time?
It's on Thursdays at 2 p.m.
Thursdays at 2 Central Time.
Wait, is it 1? Is it 1 Central or 2 Central? It's 1
One
o'clock, actually, yeah. I take
ah
that back. It's 1 o'clock Central.
1 o'clock Central. She's had a little too much coffee this morning, folks. I'm telling you, might be a little cocoa drunk. So 1 o'clock on Thursdays, and it's all just about rehabs,
Just
basically,
rehabs.
right?
Yep.
And you guys cover every aspect. People get on there and ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
How do
Yep.
you decide how you're going to do this? How do you decide how you're going to do that? That kind of
For
stuff.
sure.
And we're going to talk about some of that this morning. I've got questions for her that I haven't told her about two of them before. There'll be big surprises, and we'll
Right.
have drum rolls right before she gets ready to answer those. Christina, can you do drum rolls?
Thank you. Yeah.
So let's just start. I mean, where are you originally from? I mean,
From Virginia Beach, Virginia, right on the East Coast.
man, that's such a pretty place.
It is. I still have family there, so.
Did you grow up like a beach girl, running around,
Mhm.
kid, playing in
Yep.
the sand all day?
Yep.
Uh,
Pretty lucky.
Starting to dislike you. We have no beach in North Alabama.
No, not at all.
That is not really true because when I was in about the sixth grade, they, for some reason, they chose Decatur, Alabama, and they built the first wave pool in America.
I think you told me about that.
That's
Yeah.
right. And we had a concrete beach. There was no sand. we, we had a concrete
Hurts when you
beach,
fall.
and but that was really cool. So you grew up at the beach, and then how did you wind up in Tennessee?
Well, I'm a Navy kid, so we moved quite a bit,
Okay,
but ended up here when I was in high school and stayed and
Murfreesboro,
graduated. No, Paris, Tennessee. So
Clifty
out west.
Farms,
Yes, Clifty Farms.
Paris, Tennessee, home of Clifty Farm hams. Okay, and Paris, out of the blue, is there something?
I have some family history there. My great grandfather was a physician there, and he had a clinic there.
Okay,
So yeah,
nice, nice, nice. And then from Paris, how did you get to Murfreesboro or Nashville or what?
love.
Love, you
Yes,
followed some boy or some boy
I
followed you, or
I guess I technically followed him.
and was he a Murfreesboro guy or
Yep,
close?
always from Murfreesboro, born and raised.
Well, I'll be down.
Yep.
And so then you kicked him to the curb. It sounds like
No, we're still married. 6 years on the 22nd.
6 years on the 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't met this fella before, but
Yeah, maybe you have for sure.
no, I tell you what, I actually introduced them. It's
Mm-hmm.
interesting because her husband Jay is one of my best buds, and I'd been thinking, who do I want to introduce to Amanda?
Because I needed it, right?
Because I felt so bad for her. She was like a lost puppy, y'all, wandering around town. It was terrible.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And not true. It was a lost puppy with a bunch of boys running after her. So I introduced her. I was having my daughter was having my birthday party.
Mm-hmm.
Was it my
I feel like it was your
55th
55th, yes.
birthday party? Just a puppy I am. And so I invited Jay to come to that, and I invited Amanda to come to that. And so they were sitting across the tables, these big long tables across the tables from each other. Jay was sitting right next to me. And I got up and went to the bathroom because that's what 55-year-olds do a whole lot. And when I got back, my seat had been co-opted by a blonde that was across the table. And then I wound up having to move across the table, and that was the beginning of a torrid love affair.
Yes.
to this day almost puts the rest of our relationships to shame.
Sure does. Truth.
No,
Truth.
no. He's an interesting dude. He's an engineer at Nissan,
Hmm.
and I am not.
No.
No, that's why our relationship didn't last.
Got a lot
I'm
of
telling you,
yeah.
I'm kind of all over the place, and it 1 + 1 = 2. And Woodall, if you cannot agree to that tonight, I'm going to need you to go somewhere
We're
else.
done. Yeah.
Quit drink,
Conversation over.
quit drinking my cocktails if you're not going to agree with me. And but we're like the odd couple, so we've hung in there. It's good stuff. Well, enough about personal lives. I'm not going to tell you about mine or answer any questions about mine.
Thanks.
So, you are now the way that we got lucky and found Amanda, though, for this position was that you were our flooring rep.
Yep.
And you would be handling it. It would seem like to me, how many contractors would you have at a time that you were providing flooring for?
So I did new home construction, and then I did multifamily. So multifamily, I had around 35 different accounts.
Yeah.
Sometimes they were regional accounts, so I would handle a big cluster of them in the area. And then new home builders had several that I could tell you right off the top of my head.
Yeah. Yeah. And I knew that she was going to be good for us when I heard her on the phone one day. And I've never heard anyone talk to another human being with that kind of for fierceness of getting stuff done back at her home office. And I was like, Amanda would be perfect for us, because at the time Brad had already decided that we needed to get me out of rehabs because I was traveling way too much.
Exhausting.
Yeah. And and for somebody my age, that's not good.
It's dangerous.
That's
Yeah.
dangerous. And I got this sciatic nerve from it now. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about my rear end today. But so he said, who would be good? And I said, look, I got the perfect person. We just got it. I just need you to interview. So did y'all ever have an interview first before you started?
No, we met at Chewy's. Yeah.
Which was where we had lunch.
Pushed alcohol on me. Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
Got her to, all she did was move her head like this. I think she was just loosening up her neck, and we took that as a yes.
She's ours.
I almost called her boss and just resigned for her. I said, look, she's decided to do something else now.
Yeah.
So I knew that after she got her feet under her and kind of an idea what this was all about, she'd be great at it. So I've got a few questions here that we can kind of walk through, and this is kind of how you've wound up. Because how long's it been?
A little over a year.
How long do you think it took before, okay, I kind of feel like I'm getting this
Made sense
in my terms now, instead of trying to figure out what Tony means by what he's saying?
I would say a few months. I mean, I had a rhythm, but to kind of make it my own and make sure that it was something I could live with and work with and build on. Yeah.
Okay. 5, 6, you think half the year? No, before that, I'd say about 3 months.
Yeah, about 3 months. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That was the point. I remember when I was still giving her unasked for advice. And she basically one day just said, hey,
Got this.
Would you like for me to say I got this, or shut the hell up? one of those two. I'm gonna give you the answer you want. I said, how about I'll take I got this. So she got it. And I mean, I was lucky if I could do 3 houses at a time. I mean, because I didn't, technology held me back a lot because I didn't know how to scale things with technology, because I had to be able to see everything, get my hands on it, all that kind of stuff. And you came in, it wasn't long before you had 3, 4, 5, then 6 going at one time. And I'm like, how in the world are you doing this? These houses must look like crap. And I would just get so excited. Yes.
Just barely hang on.
Yes, it's that thing. It's like duct tape together. And then she's painted the duct tape, And then I'd see the photos before it would go on the market. I'd be like, boy, she is hiring GCs.
Photoshop.
Yeah, it's Photoshop. But it wasn't. So, okay. So I want to talk about Cooper Drive for a minute. Interesting enough, your last name.
Yeah.
Um, Cooper Drive, we get lucky every now and then we get something close by.
Mhm.
So Cooper Drive's not far from here, maybe about 15, 20-minute drive
Yeah.
between here and Smyrna, the next little town up close as you get closer to Nashville. And all I remembered was the day that they decided to do a social media thing on Cooper Drive.
Stinky House Challenge.
The Stinky House Challenge. So tell me about the first time you saw the inside of Cooper.
Oh, it was awful. I mean, first of all, there was just so much crap everywhere. You couldn't really walk through. It smelled like dead animal, defecation, just about all the disgusting things you could think of is what it smelled like.
So
Trash.
I saw it later, and it looked to me like whoever had lived there just left.
Yeah, they just kind of ate and just threw,
And then they just
banana
left the
peels or-
house.
Yep.
And so everything that was normally inside a house was still there.
Furniture, yeah.
And including all the food that would have been in a house and cabinets and stuff,
Mhm.
and in the refrigerator, which once the electricity went off, I mean, you just want
You
to,
just tape it up.
you
roll
just
it
gotta,
out.
you just gotta duct tape that thing shut. Never open that door.
Never.
It's a smell you will carry for years to come.
So
It hides in your ears. That smell hides everywhere. You
It
can go
does.
on and burn your clothes in the front
just
yard.
don't do it.
Uh,
Yeah.
But so we had the Stinky House Challenge,
Mhm.
and who stayed in there the longest? Grace or Kevin? Or
Grace and Kevin, I believe.
were they in there an hour?
I think they were in there longer than that.
I was in
It
there
was at
about.
least an hour though.
I was in there about 4.5 minutes. I just couldn't handle it.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty bad.
And so then I haven't seen Cooper again until last week.
Oh, you did go in there? Okay, cool.
Well, we did some shutters,
Oh, that's right.
and
yeah.
you said, hey, when you're gonna, all I get's a text every now and then says, hey, where are my shutters?
It's probably
I'm like-
true.
I'm like,
sorry.
who is this? I know who it is.
I need these done in 24 hours.
Yeah. Talk to me like that. Do you not know who I am? And she's like, yeah, I know who I am. Where's my freaking shutters? And so I went out there, and Peyton, who'd already been there, knew where the key went to which door, and he opened the door, and I went in, and I could not believe this house, nor the outside of it.
Yeah, it's complete transformation.
It may be,
Yeah.
it's in the top 5 transformations. It's up there with Alpine and
Yeah.
Alpine in Greenville, Tennessee. But I mean, and the Juno Bargerton is number 1, isn't it? Not in transformation, just in the worst house
Just
ever.
done, yeah, the worst I've ever
And
seen.
now, haven't y'all basically burned it to the ground, or you?
It's been completely gutted. I mean, there's just so much mold in the drywall. It's just, it's terrible. Basically.
Are y'all going to haul it off, burn it, do whatever,
I'm not 100% sure, but yes, that's been in the
and just bring something new in there?
Yeah.
Well, we've had some of them that are just. What is your worst one, you think?
Other than Juno, I would say Alpine. Yeah, Alpine was pretty bad. I mean, weather coming into the house because there's a hole in the roof, and
by hole she means like
gaping hole.
4 foot by 4 foot hole in the kitchen, all the way through where a tree fell in.
Yeah. Yeah, and just it's sad to think people live in those conditions too.
It was
a pretty sad situation.
It was.
But,
They had bought it was an older couple,
Mhm.
and they'd sent somebody to Walmart and bought a plastic Walmart swimming pool and stuck it in the kitchen floor so if it would catch the rain. But the first time I saw it, there were tadpoles in it.
Oh yeah, dead cats, raccoons
In
inside
furniture.
the house. Yeah,
woo!
yeah. It's
Well,
crazy.
Okay.
Anyway.
So I want to talk a little bit about like where you are now.
Okay.
So at this moment, about how many houses do you think you're actively rehabbing, somewhere in the process, from just getting started in it, cleaning off property and demo?
I'd say around 12. We've got some owner finances that we're just cleaning out, getting to a place where it's not, super disgusting and more sellable. We have some that are in the process of being sold. So the buyer has some requests that we have to attend to. And then we've got some that we're in the process of rehabbing from the beginning.
Well, it almost sounded, I mean, I get that process, but for a second, I thought you said 12.
I did.
You have 12 going at one time.
Yes.
You know, I probably could have done that, but I decided not to for personal reasons.
For personal reasons.
Like I didn't know how to do that. 12 houses at one time. And you don't use general contractors. You don't really, in that area, just call a contractor and turn them loose on it. You handle all of it from here.
From start to finish, yeah. I have my hand on it. You know, I'm not always on the property.
Some of them you've never been to.
Correct. No.
And you go start to finish on them.
Yep.
So what we're teaching an investor creator about rehabbing houses, that is the actual way that Brad does it.
Yes.
So let me say this, because we're to this place now, which is 8.5 years down the road for Brad. Maybe 9 now for Brad by himself, and then 8 for me. And so we actually started out this way, but in the beginning, before I came along, if Brad had a rehab, he would oversee that rehab himself while he is still working his leads that are coming in, trying to talk to a lender, form relationships with lenders, just like someone just getting in investor creator has to go through. He did that then. And then when I joined with him, I started out doing buying. We were just focused on buying sub 2 and some now, some later. But then we had some coming in who needed to be rehabbed, and we could stick them back on the market because there was so much equity captured in it. So then we would both try to do that together. He would do more of it because at that point, we went and saw every house.
I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we didn't buy anything virtually, and we would be totally freaked out if someone tried to talk us into buying something without seeing it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, it's a scary feeling.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. And so then I started doing more rehabbing because our numbers were growing. And still then, everything had to be something we could see. So like rehabbing a house in East Tennessee, that would have freaked us out.
Yeah.
We couldn't have done that. But now here we are that you're rehabbing 12 houses right now. And some of them are in the state of Tennessee. But are there some in other states right now?
I've got Kentucky,
Georgia.
We finished up one that was in Florida. Never saw that one. We just have some that are, a pretty considerable distance across the like East Tennessee area. It's just, if I were to go to that house, it would be an entire day on the road.
Yeah, you can drive 5 hours east of here and still be in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you've got one. Do you have one in Bristol, or did they sell that house?
We sold that one.
Oh, yes, nice. Mm-hmm. Nice. Okay. So how do you decide scope of work? Like, what's your first hints you start getting on what you might do to a property? Is it like pictures?
Yeah, so, there's pictures provided of the house. So that gives us a general idea cosmetically of what we're going to do, along with the inspection. So
do the pictures, now I've heard this as a rumor, so do you as the rehab manager, Brad's rehab manager, do you require pictures from James and Kevin, who are actually getting the house under contract? Mm-hmm. Do you require that they send you pictures from the get-go?
Yes.
Like inside, outside?
As many as I can get.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're starting on scope of work as they're buying the house?
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Okay. And then, so I'm learning a lot of this stuff because I've never done it this way before. So.
Well, you don't want to base, the sale of the house, you purchasing a home off of a really low ball rehab cost. You're going to cut yourself out of the equity that you think you're going to get.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Because you
need to do that.
capture, here's another thing that's important to realize, that there's not just one time you capture equity, and that's when you get it under contract. That's just your beginning equity. But Amanda captures equity too, because when we decide in the beginning that we're probably going to spend $40,000 on this scope of work, if she can cut that down to $33,000, then she's captured $7,000 more dollars in equity, which is so important to somebody that's just starting out in Investor Creator.
Oh, yeah.
Is that you realize that you can capture equity also in the way you rehab.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Is that fair?
Yep.
Okay. So so once what about the inspection? What role does the inspection play?
So there's the major things that you want to look at when you're getting the inspection: the roof, foundation, plumbing issues. Hopefully your utilities are on, because that's going to point out major electrical or plumbing issues that are going on.
Do utilities usually have to be on before they'll do an inspection?
Yes. No. I mean, we prefer that for obvious reasons, but they're not always on.
So if they're not, then they'll say, do they say that in the inspection then,
Yes,
that
you'll know.
this was done without utilities
Mhm.
being on, so I couldn't check for leaks and I couldn't check
Correct.
for,
Yeah.
whether electricity works.
So sometimes based off of visual inspection, I'll put a miscellaneous amount in there just to make sure we're covered if there are some plumbing issues or electrical issues.
Okay, you said the word amount. Do you have like a basic list of what you think close certain things are going to cost? Do you have a cost list?
Yes.
Okay, so like you're going to pay, if someone's going to come demo a kitchen or some bathrooms, you have an idea what you'll pay them for demo.
Yes, correct.
Then if they're going to, like if you demoed old molding, old baseboards and mold around the top,
Mhm.
and you're going to replace that with, say, new flatboard.
Sure.
Just flatboard. How do you figure what you're going to pay someone to put flatboard?
Well, I mean, you can take the measurements of the house and you can get a guesstimate on what it is.
So you pay them by the foot to put it back?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So it would be important for our apprentices to be getting on that Monday call and finding out how to get any doc you have that shows them how to do a statement of work. And what you call that an SOW, right?
The scope.
Scope
Yes.
of work, not
Uh-huh.
a statement, scope of work. And then any docs that would lead to potentially what you pay people.
Yes. It's on the scope.
Is that stuff in the digital assets?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you've already put that in digital
And I
assets.
believe it's SOW.
Okay, SOW. The
SOW.
old statement of work, as I called it. But it's actually the scope of work.
This is your statement of work.
Okay. Okay, so is there somewhat of an order that you have found that it's best to go in as far as how you're going to rehab a house?
Yes. So if there are any structural issues, subfloor repairs, plumbing, electrical, any of those things need to be worked out on the front end so that you're not undoing anything that you do in the meantime. So you don't want to go in the house and fix all the drywall and paint it when you've not addressed any plumbing issues or electrical that would cause you to have to knock out drywall.
Okay. So do you have somewhat of a, like that you, something in writing that you use to kind of make sure you may not need everything on it, but it's the order in case you did need everything on it?
Yes, there is a 50 steps to a rehab, which I need to dig up and find to kind of help some of our apprentices. I think it'd be really helpful. But yes, there is an order, and it is imperative that you follow it just for.
You know, there's a funny story about that. Are you talking about the one that looks like a calendar?
Yes, it
Okay.
looks like little dominoes that
Yeah.
you follow.
So the weird thing about this, and I'd never thought about it until right now, the day Investor Creator was born, we were handed that.
Oh, really?
It's when we went down to, we joined this big group in this real estate investment group, national investment group. And they were having a mastermind in Pensacola, Florida. So we paid a lot of money to be in this thing. Twice what Investor Creator is. And this was probably 6 years ago. 6 years ago. 5. Anyway, so we go down to Pensacola, Florida, this thing, and it is just not going well. And that's the story where we decided to just go out to the beach. We were right there to the beach, and we were missing it for stuff that we didn't even really. Anyway, so we got up and went out. I went upstairs to the room, put some swim trunks on. Because I know how much people like to see me in a swimsuit, you know.
Yeah. It's just dying to see it. Yeah.
Great bod and everything. So I said, I'm going to go upstairs. So when I came back down, the door opened up. The bar was right by that elevator. And when I opened it up, I heard someone say, "You have got to be shitting me." Yeah. And I knew right then that Brad was telling these guys how to buy sub-2.
Oh.
And came around the corner at that bar, and that's exactly what was going on. There was about 15 of those investors that had come outside to the bar for basically the same reason. Huh. And one of them had asked Brad what he did, and he started telling them. Of course, that was another 2 hours right there.
I'm sure.
At the 2 guys who he had started telling were 2 guys from Texas who were investment partners. Mm-hmm. They gave us that.
Oh, okay, cool.
That list that we've had. That's the kind of the order you go in, because they did some from ground up construction, new construction. And so, but they said we use this with our investment properties too. So that's been kind of the way we have done our kind of the from ground up kind. And we do basically start our rehabs for most of the time from ground up, like you.
Quite literally.
Yeah. So, okay, good stuff. So they can get that from you, or are you thinking about putting it on?
I will try to find that to post to our Thursday call.
Okay, nice.
Sure.
Nice. So also then, so there's pics, there's inspection. What about, like, what role is it a rural area, or is it Franklin, Tennessee, downtown Franklin, Tennessee? Mm-hmm. What role does that kind of play in what you're going to do in a house?
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at it like you're keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak, you want to see kind of what the area calls for. So if you're in Franklin, Tennessee, we have a house there. We sanded and finished hardwood floors. Okay. We're going to put a little bit nicer cabinets. We're going to put a tile shower surround.
Okay.
But if we're in a smaller, more rural area, we'll probably...
Like McMinnville.
Like McMinnville, yeah. We would put in a fiberglass tub surround.
Okay.
We would put in our basic shaker cabinets. We would not put in a sand and finish floor. We would put in LVT. Looks just as great, but you're saving some cost when you're marketing to that specific area.
You get the same look, don't you? It's just not hardwood. But you don't actually need them there, do you?
You don't need it there, no.
So what role does, like, how difficult is it to find that spot where I can spend the least amount of money and get the most amount of bang, and where those two meet? That tension between, if I just start with most amount of bang, then, and I don't take into consideration the least amount that I have to spend to get the most amount, it's going to always be a little less of the biggest bang, a little less of a bang, because I'm spending less money.
Sure.
But if I don't need it, how do you know how to find that spot?
I mean, really, the price of the house when you're getting ready to sell it.
Your ARV, okay.
Yeah, that can determine really how far you're going to go with it. I mean, really, that's bottom line for us as far as when I'm doing them.
I mean, but I just love Pinterest. And so I get on Pinterest. Here's the first thing I do.
You are a Pinterest person.
I know. I get on Pinterest and I start looking all this stuff in here. And the next thing you know, I've been carried away, and I've got a house that I have to sell for $750,000 that will not bring more than $140,000.
Yeah, you're screwed.
I am screwed because I have done stuff inside this tiny little thing that looks great on Pinterest, but does not look great on the MLS.
You just have to control yourself.
I just want to be free. My
Stop it.
creative
Yeah.
ventures.
It's
So,
over. Okay.
um, so in a conversation that Amanda and I were having before this started, the conversation was um, about rehabs. Why can't we just do cookie cutter rehabs? And so in thinking about that, it it made me realize that we're not out there. James is not buying based on what kind of rehab we can do. So we don't act just like we said we don't buy houses, we buy equity. We don't buy cookie cutter rehabs, we buy cookie cutter equity. So what that means for you is it makes it a little more difficult because you can't just do the same thing to all of them.
No.
But if you get some little small houses out in the country, you can kind of do some similar
You
things.
can replicate. Yeah.
And if you get some stuff in middle class America, great ranches, you can kind of replicate and do some of the same things. And and then how do you handle how that stifles your creative tooth because you feel like you're doing these six houses and they're almost all alike? I mean, do you
Well,
feel that way sometimes?
no, I don't feel like the Joanna Gaines or rehabs. I don't really get into that, so it doesn't. I don't feel stifled.
Hmm. But I'd like to be Chip.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a fun time, but I'm all about getting it done and delivering a safe product and a good enough house. I mean, and if you're doing it in a mechanical way, you're able to get through it. You don't have to overthink it. It's just kind of already laid out for you.
You said something there, a good enough way.
Mhm.
And so it is one of those things that if you're going to try to have your sweet tooth
Mhm.
on these rehabs, you'll wind up not being able to
You have to have some control.
get that spot. You
Hmm.
have to have some self control, some creative control. Well, I can't think of anything else I had on my list. Is there anything that pops out to you? I mean, you're going to have other opportunities to be on here, but if you've got something right now you've been wanting to tell us, inquiring minds want to know.
No, I would like some feedback on what you guys want to discuss on Thursdays. If there's anything that's kind of getting you stumped or anything you guys need to talk about, post it under the Facebook today.
Okay.
And that definitely gives me some ideas on how I can help you guys.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, Amanda, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you.
And we'll be back next week. Hopefully, Brad will be back here. He had something going on this morning. He had to be away, but I mean, goodness gracious. Hey, our orange, my sweater and your dress, they're almost on the. Yeah,
Today.
we're very fallish today. So,
Mhm.
all right, then. Have a great day, everybody. Good to see
Bye.
you.
See ya.